Well, I'd like to talk a little bit today about the Clair College Amphitheatre. A lot of people probably wouldn't even know about the amphitheater because it was located where the student residence is currently located. But early in the 1970s, I had been active with the alumni board of directors at the University of Windsor. And because of that, I was asked if I would like to get going on something with an alumni association here at St. Clair. And we had a pretty good start because we had some fellows who had graduated from White and who had been getting together but with nothing formal. And so I got together with some people like Don Yates and Wayne Renault and Herb Stamler and some of these fellows, and we got an alumni association going. And one of the things that we did early in the game was we tied an alumni fee directly to the student activity fee. And this gave us a little bit of income. So early in the 70s, the Alumni Association felt that they'd like to be able to sit down and come up with some kind of an idea that would leave a lasting bricks and mortar structure here on the campus as donated by the Alumni Association. So the group met with Bill Gerates, who at the time was the Director of Plant Services, and Bill came up with several possible alternatives. One was to contribute to the landscaping of the campus in general. A second one was to come up with something fancy for the quadrangle that exists between the current cafeteria and the current, I guess you would call it the retraining building. I don't know what they're calling it now. And then the third thing was to develop an amphitheater. So the group got together and agreed to support the building of an amphitheater. Now the thing that was going on at the time, the only part of the building that was here was Block A, which was up to the lobby and everything to the west. And the B block and C block were being built, and the excavation was going on, and there was a lot of earth being removed. And so rather than take it off campus, it was agreed to create a location, as I said, where the current student residence is, and to start building the amphitheater using the dirt that was being excavated from the building. Well, it developed and it kept going up, and pretty soon we had a bowl that was over 30 feet in height. And at that point it was nothing but a mound of dirt shaped like a bowl that had been more or less moved around by earth movers, and there was a lot of work that had to be done. So the first thing that had to happen was that we had to do something about utilities. So there was about $25,000 worth of utilities which ran hydro and water and that type of thing into the site. And then the next thing was to sod the entire bowl of the amphitheater, both inside and out. And so we sodded the inside, and the outside was done by what was known at the time was crown vetch, and it was a vine type of thing that had been used by the Department of Transport on the sides of overpasses. And so they sprayed this stuff on, and this vine grew on the outside. And then the next thing that had to go up was there had to be a fence, because you couldn't hold an event in there unless you could control admission and exit. So that went on, and a stage was built, a very rudimentary stage at the time, a platform and plywood sheeting. And that was the amphitheater that we got started with. Then the South Windsor Optimist Club came along, and they said, could we use the exterior of your amphitheater and come up with a soapbox derby hill on the outside? So they took care of excavation and getting dirt to run a ramp down the north side of the amphitheater, and they paved it with asphalt, and for many years ran the soapbox derby every spring down the outside of the amphitheater, and it worked very well. Some of the things that went on in there were were pretty exciting. We had a number of great groups that went in there. The biggest concert that we had, AM 800 CKLW, in conjunction with a candy bar sponsor that I can't remember what the candy bar was, but if you came with a label, you got into this concert. And the concert at that time consisted of Bachman Turner Overdrive. And the place was jammed. The estimates have gone all the way from 10 to 20,000 people that were on the slopes on the inside. And there's some great pictures around of the place just loaded with people. And it was a wonderful concert. And Bachman Turner at that time was just getting started. And so they saw it as an opportunity for promotion for themselves. And of course, this was Randy Bachman and Burton Cummins and these folks. And so it was a great concert. We just had a wonderful time with that. We didn't have so much fun after with the complaints from the neighbors about the sound and the noise, but it was, we quit at 11 o'clock, which was the sound bylaw at the time, and that worked very well. Some of the groups that have been in there, Chuck Berry was said to have been in there, although I'm not sure that Chuck Berry was in the amphitheater. He may have been in the cafeteria, but he was on campus. One of the real great acts in there was Harry Chapin, who was famous for a Taxi and a song known as Cats in the Cradle. And he was there on a Sunday night. It was a beautiful, beautiful night. It was all acoustic. There was no loud electric guitars. And he just sat up there on the stage and he played and he sang. People lit their lighters and held them up. And it was just a wonderful evening. And he did a great job. There was a Canadian band known as Lighthouse. Another Canadian band was Brownsville Station. No, I think they were from Michigan, the Brownsville Station. John Lee Hooker, who became famous. He was not when he came here, but he was I guess a blues and jazz kind of a singer. Mahogany Rush was a rock group from the United States. One that was just wild was a group called the Greaseball Boogie Band. And the guy that led the group was known for stripping down on stage. And he didn't disappoint the group. Another well-known name that was there was Wolfman Jack. He was a big DJ from down in the Los Angeles area. And he came to, it may have been the Bachman Turner concert. I'm just not sure, but he emceed the whole concert, and he was really good. The Guess Who, of course, Burton Cummins, BTO. There's some discussion about whether or not Bob Seger might have been the first act in there. And of course, that was before Bob Seger was the name that he is today, but again, there was some discussion about whether or not Bob was in the amphitheater or whether he was in the cafeteria. I guess the biggest event that we had in there was a weekend known as the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz in Exile. Just for some background, the Ann Arbor Blues Festival was obviously held in Ann Arbor, and they had held it there for several years in the late 60s. And if you remember the late 60s, they were kind of wild on college campuses. And they were finally stopped from going back to Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor refused them permission. And so we were naive, and we had two former student government executive people who had been hired for the summer to run some concerts. And they were approached and by the promoter of this Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz, and he wanted to come over here, promote it in the Michigan and in Canada, but promote it as Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz in Exile. And we agreed. And it was to have been a 3-day event from starting Thursday night, going through Friday, Saturday, actually a 4-day event, and ending Sunday night. So they advertised camping, and the campus out behind the amphitheater and all to the north side of the amphitheater was just filled with tents, people in sleeping bags just sleeping out in the open, cars parked all over the place. And he was supposed to have been in control and have taken charge of all this. All we were doing was renting the facility. Well, on Thursday night, he realized that he wasn't going to make money and he wasn't going to be able to pay his acts. And he left and headed back to Michigan. And here we were, a bunch of raw rookies in the concert business, and we had to try to keep this thing going because we would have had some awfully upset people around the campus. So to the credit of these two student leaders, they renegotiated every act. Friday afternoon they started again. Friday evening went okay. Saturday went all day and Saturday evening. And then Sunday came. Well, Sunday the featured act was B.B. King. And he had been contracted for a rather large sum of money. And we were really concerned because there was a large contingent here from Michigan who came just to see B.B. King. And if we weren't able to produce him, we were a little concerned about what might happen on campus. So we had been collecting admission money. My trunk became the cash register. People were coming in the gate. We were just taking money, throwing it in the trunk of my car, and no accountability for tickets or anything the way it was going. We were renegotiating every act as the act went on the stage. So Sunday came, and Sunday afternoon we were really worried about B.B. King, and so we got in touch with B.B. King's manager and explained the situation to him. And he said, well, how much have you got? So I said, let me get back to you. So we took literally paper bags full of money up to my office. And here the three of us are counting ones and twos, $5 bills in my office. We put all the money, organized, put it all back in paper bags. We had $6,000. So we called B.B. King's manager and we said, look, all we've got is $6,000. We can't come up with any more. And I said, we've got a campus full of people here waiting to hear B.B. King. So the manager said, okay. He said, if you can come over here with the cash, meet us in Michigan, we will come over and do the act. So now, keep in mind, this is bags full of money loose in my car, crossing the border. And you know, those are in the days before 9/11, and you just drove through the border. And I had all kinds of ideas that I was going to get arrested for robbing a bank or something with all this loose money. So we went over to U.S. Customs on the American side, and B.B. King was there in his tour bus. And we were invited onto the bus. We met B.B. King and thanked him profusely for doing this act. He came over and he put on a show that was unbelievable. It was something to be remembered. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for B.B. King after that. But I guess we had pretty high hopes for what we might be able to do with the amphitheater. I think at one point comparisons were being made to a regular summer concert series like Stratford or something like that. But we had real problems with security. For example, in the wintertime, it was a perfect spot for the kids to toboggan. But they didn't have toboggans, so they ripped the stage apart and would take plywood sheets and start at the top of the hill on the inside and go right down and then back up the other side, back and forth. And it was a great spot for a lot of fun. It was crowded every time it snowed, but it did nothing for the facility as, you know, what we had in mind for it. So when Dr. Strasser started at the college, very short while after he was here, he called and his secretary said, Dr. Strasser would like to meet with you. And I said, okay, do you know what it's about? And she said, well, it has something to do with the amphitheater. So at that time, nothing was being done. The hydro outlets in the amphitheater had been vandalized. It was practically useless as it was. There would have been a lot of money that would have been required to get the thing back into shape. So I went to Dr. Strasser's office, and I had only met him once prior to that, and he said, how would you feel if we got rid of the amphitheater? And I guess it must have showed on my face. I said, I'd be kind of upset. I said, we put a lot of work into that. We had high hopes for it, and I would be quite disappointed, but I said, I would understand that, you know, it hasn't lived up to what our expectations were. And he said, well, we want to put the student residence right there. So I said, well, you're the boss. And I said, as disappointed I'd be, I said, I would really like to see a residence on campus. And that was the end of the amphitheater. So I think that's probably one of the fun times we had around here was the concerts that we had in the amphitheater.